I am hanging in there, and we are sitting down today with punk icon Big Jym Anderson. So what's going on, man? How have you been?
I've been all right. Every day's been on the upswing. Recovering. You obviously were there when I returned the other night, which was a
Yep,
big deal. Got some good stuff on the horizon, which I'm looking forward to, and some things I can hint at but can't talk about.
okay.
And uh, as far as wrestling goes, and good things on the up and up with music. Band's working on a third album, so I'm very excited about that.
That's amazing.
So yeah, man, it's just been. Right now, the small little things that are saving, that kind of save my life in the background. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I hear you, man. So we're gonna kind of go all over the place, literally, because that's just kind of how it is. And like I said before, I'm unprepared because I just figured we'd wing it because we know each other pretty well. We could probably
Sure.
handle a good sit down for a while. So first, I guess we'll just start off with your pro wrestling. How did you get interested in pro wrestling? How was it growing up?
So as far as pro wrestling goes, pro wrestling was my bond with my dad.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, we would 605, you know, Georgia Championship Wrestling, AWA, World Class Championship Wrestling, and where we lived in Bethel, Connecticut, WWF wasn't on TV in that area yet, so
Really?
was world class. It was Georgia Championship Wrestling, NWA, and AWA at that point. So
I like to hear that. I really do because I always say how I know I've talked about it so much on the show that I was so excited every day at 4 o'clock to come home from school to catch that World Class Championship Wrestling on
yeah.
ESPN. That was like my favorite, and I actually got some AWA on in the background because that's another thing I was really into as a kid.
Well, it was weird too because AWA was it was right at the end of everybody's all the big guys runs before they went to the WWF. So
Right.
it was like I got to see Hulk Hogan wrestle I think one time ever on AWA, and then fast forward like a year later, he was like the biggest thing in WWF, and it was like the craziest thing I've ever seen. And I
So you
was
got
like,
into it.
see him on the other company, like what's he doing over there? Because everything was still kayfabe then. So
Right. I always thought that was really weird as a kid from people jumping from company to company. But then obviously as I get older I figured out how that territory system worked and how people were plucked from territory to territory in WWF.
and
So
then and some guys who were smart, who were like the Road Warriors, were like, all right, we're getting stale, time to move. You know what
yeah,
I mean? And
and they made a ton of money doing it. So
yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
So I'm surprised that you said you didn't get the WWF television up in Bethel, Connecticut. I mean, I'm
well, it was
surprised.
weird because it was like because they were still and they were still had their deal, I believe, with it was before they got on USA, and I think they were in between the TV deals.
Okay,
So you know what I mean. So it was like it was on. I mean, I vividly remember Black Saturday. Like I remember
that's amazing.
watching Vince McMahon come out and say, "Hey, WWF is going to be showing TV on Turner." Like I remember that,
Yep.
but I don't remember ever really catching WWF television until I was like 8 or 9 years old.
Yeah, I think I got into it. Sounds all about 1984ish. So it's like I think the first thing I witnessed. I just remember my cousin was watching. I think the War to Settle the Score or something like that, and I just remember
Yeah,
Piper being on TV, and that was for my first wrestling experience was Roddy Piper. So I think that's pretty amazing considering like how he. I just realized how important he was to me and professional wrestling in general because he was like a crazy guy, at that time
yeah, he
period.
was the best.
Yeah, he really was. So, who as a kid were you into?
I mean, obviously, my last name's Anderson. Arn was a big influence on me, big time.
It's my favorite of all
Um,
time.
arguably, in my opinion, one of the greatest singles wrestler to never hold the
Hmm.
world title. And he
Absolutely.
only did that out of loyalty, which was tremendous because they wanted to put it on him so many times, but every time they wanted to put it on him, they wanted him to take off Rick, and that just wasn't going to happen.
Right.
So, but yeah, Arn Anderson, huge. I'm a big Vader mark from from the WCW, from NWA, from New Japan. All Japan, all his. I mean, I still go back now and watch a lot of
Mm-hmm.
those old matches. I was literally just talking to my girlfriend about the riot in the Tokyo Dome after he beat Inoki, and we were watching like a short video clip, and they're like, we're not talking. They might have thrown some stuff in the ring and yelled profanities. They were like literally setting fires and pulling
Yeah.
chairs out of the ground and throwing them, and and just like hearing like Vader collecting belts, what was it, like 11 belts and like
Oh yeah, he was
what's
really
it,
up
something.
there at that time. Yeah,
Yeah,
he was huge in Japan, and it's amazing. Like because he started in the AWA as Leon White, the Baby Bull, and he wasn't really doing much, and then went to Japan and just blew up as that character.
like
And his
Godzilla,
matches, yeah, his
you know.
matches with Stan Hansen are freaking legendary. So, and have you ever seen him in UWFI? If you ever seen
No, I
that,
have not.
he took on Gary Albright in a match, and I got to tell you, it's like a shoot wrestling like league, and it was really freaking intense to watch. I mean, you'd see all sorts of American guys go over there and wrestle like Japanese guys, and it was just some of the stiffest stuff you'd ever see. So,
Just full on bangers.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, what involved you, and how did you end up getting into professional wrestling?
So it's actually a pretty funny story. So my band, I was, we were doing a lot of touring, and we had come home from the South by Southwest in Texas, and I was working out in a gym in Brookfield, Connecticut, and same gym that Brian Anthony worked out at,
Hmm.
and Randy Shawn, Jay Busta, was there, and I'm lifting weights, and I was talking to him about, um, I was like really wanted to get into pro wrestling, and days gone by, and him and I had been talking back and forth and whatever. And one day I forgot what I was doing. I think I was doing incline tosses with on an incline bench at 225, basically throwing the barbell up and catching it on an incline at 225.
Jeez.
And Randy walks by and he's like, listen, I have an idea. And and we talked a little bit. He was like, if you're willing to do a few things for me, and get some training done, I have a spot for you. But I need you to do a few things. I said, what's that? He's like, well, first I need you to dye your hair blonde. And I was like, I kind of like looked at him over the top of my glasses. I was like, what now? And he was like, he's like, I need you to dye your hair blonde. I need you to get a button down shirt with the sleeves cut off and a hot pink tie. So I said, okay, I think I can do all that. So I went out and I dyed my hair blonde, and I had been doing some training in the interim. And I showed up at Bethany.
Mm.
Uh, it was the first Bethany show after CTW had left the building,
Okay.
and I had previously at the last CTWA show, I was there with Randy. I had met Bull Dread and Ron Zombie. I had met Mike Lombardi and shook his hand. And at that point, I had showed up at the next show, that first NEW show that was there, and I got my stuff. And sure enough, I ended up walking Randy out as his new bodyguard that show, and that was like 9 years ago. And
Oh
here I
wow.
am. Yeah.
I do have a question about it. I did come across a match of yours on YouTube,
Oh boy.
wearing that garb. As I did try to do a little research, probably months back when we first started talking about coming on. So you did a job this Hornswoggle?
I did, in fact. I worked Hornswoggle. It was for the Dynasty. Uh, great match, great show. Had a lot of fun, and yes, I did do a job to Hornswoggle. I wouldn't say necessarily did a job. I mean, he did cheap shot me in the nuts, which got me to fall down. But uh, very memorable match. Very cool guy. He yeah, it was just after I think his release. And
Okay.
I think I was like his fifth or sixth match after being released from WWE. He was a really good dude.
Oh, I
Um,
I was really surprised to see that match. I mean, for some reason, you and Hornswoggle, because I mean, you tower over most people. So
yeah,
I mean, Most regular sized people, I should say. So
Well, I mean, and if you watch the match, it was a lot of fun, and like I would do it 101 times. It was a
that's
good
awesome.
time.
Hey everyone, you want to listen to the best in pro wrestling talk? Tune in to the Top Rope Report podcast with Mr. Trivia and the Nugster Greg every Sunday, 6:30 p.m. on TalkShoe.com, Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast. Join us as we discuss WWE, NXT, PAPW independent wrestling, and a whole lot more. It's the Top Rope Report, the best in pro wrestling talk.
So who had a hand in training you?
So it started off. I was with Jay Bosta, Randy Shawn, for the first, I think, 2.5 years, 3 years.
Okay.
And then I had met someone, and they had discussed with me, hey, you should really go out and talk to this other school where I go. And that person brought me out to East Haven, and I walked through the door, and there was Mario Mancini, and shortly after, followed by Pretty Paul Roma. And I've been with them for the last 6 years. So
that long. Okay.
Yeah.
I started coming around. Go ahead.
The first student there was Richard Holiday, followed by their first female student, followed by me.
Okay.
So
I think I first started coming around almost 3 years ago to Paradise shows.
Okay.
I'd been kind of out of wrestling for a while, and probably about 2-3 years after a bunch of bull crap in my life, and then I just so happened to run into Roma one day at a gas station. He invited me down. Basically, for the next 3 years, I probably missed only 2 shows in that next 3 years because it's just. I came down to the show like a week or so later, whatever the next show was, and I really enjoyed myself. I think that Roma and Mario and everybody just did their best to put on a good family-friendly show, and that's what I think is very important in professional wrestling these days, because in the 90s, professional wrestling changed, and there was like this whole adult-oriented era that, I didn't necessarily approve a lot of that stuff, but,
Well, I mean, you got to think, when you had companies that were taking off like ECW, which was taking off big time at that point, and if you're not evolving, you're dying, and WCW and WWF just follow right on. I mean, Listen, I will always be a Paul Heyman guy. I will never not be a Paul Heyman guy. He had the balls to speak his mind, but no one else would. He is punk rock. He is punk rock wrestling to me, as punk rock as you can get.
Right.
So, the majors just kind of had to be like, well, the DIY guys are kicking our ass. So,
right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
they were doing something different, definitely going against the grain, and it was just, at that time period. I don't know how much, do you ever go back and watch ECW? Like older ECW footage?
Yeah. I mean, I watched Eastern Championship Wrestling stuff and kind of put my head in my hands where I'm just like, wow, they were doing this. Like,
that was indie wrestling in New England at that time period. That wasn't just ECW,
Right.
That was like wrestling in New England. And I'm a huge New England historian as well, on top of all that stuff. But you look back at, especially some of the later stuff, it doesn't necessarily hold up. It's that 95 to like 97 era that really was like the pinnacle for them. That was just fantastic. And I think and they hung on to that for another 3 or 4 years and such.
I mean, and they just got I think they really would have been a solid contender for the majors had there not been so much so many power plays behind the scenes.
Money, the money was one. They didn't have anybody under contract, so WCW and WWF was just cherry picking, who they wanted, all the big guys. So you brought up a name that I'm very interested in because I haven't heard that name in years. Whatever happened to Jay Busta?
He's still around, man. He runs a very successful gym in the Danbury area, Platinum Fitness.
Okay.
We do talk on occasion. He's doing very well for himself. I'm not. I don't want to speculate as to whether or not he's still wrestling.
Yeah.
I know he's definitely become more of a family man and concentrates mostly on his business, which is doing very, very well.
Right.
And he's evolving with the times, just like I think everybody else is. So, he's in great shape still. So I wouldn't count him out, but I'm not
Oh,
sure
I'd
if he's
love
at this point.
I'd love to see him back in the ring. I mean, I haven't, that's a name. Like I said, he was still around when I was kind of still into wrestling, and then I disappeared for about 3 years, and then 3 or 4 years, and then once I started getting back into it, there's a lot of people were gone, at
Right.
that time period, especially in Northeast. Northeast is like a completely different wrestling organization than it was, and when I stopped attending wrestling shows a couple years prior, it seems like it's a way bigger organization than it was at the time. They work with a lot of the bigger indies, or
Right.
you know, Ring of
They
Honor and
work with like
such,
Ring of Honor and such. Yeah. I
chaotic
mean,
and stuff.
in, full credit, um, you know, before Paradise Alley, there wouldn't be a Big Jym Anderson without Jay Busta,
Hmm.
or Stevie Stamos, or definitely not without Mike Lombardi bringing me in, and
Right,
giving me my start. And then Paul Roma and Mario Mancini sort of not sort of, they definitely like, all right, kid, time to kick it up, and they polished me up and put out a monster, and that was what their goal was. So,
right.
credit to all those guys for at least, keep me around after 9 years. Yeah.
So I think it was. I'm trying to get my timeline uh, appropriate because it was the last year we went through the pandemic, and prior to that, you were teaming up with Bull Dread for a little while. And how did that relationship, how did that tag team come about?
We tagged together, I think, at the North Haven Fair, and there was a little bit of chemistry there, but Bull's Connecticut legend,
Right.
and so he's a Connecticut legend.
Yeah.
He's been around 20 years in the business. He won't, forget to remind you. And he's a good dude. It just, I have my own mentality and my own way of wanting to do things. And you've known me throughout the years. I'm not one to necessarily go out there and kiss babies and shake hands. When I come
Right.
to that, I'm there to kick someone's ass, and that's the point. So, he's, hey, I'm Bull Dread, and hey, I'm going to kick your head in kind of guy. So that kind of blew the team up a little bit there. So we had a falling out.
Right. And then you guys ended up during the pandemic. I guess you guys had met in a last man standing match.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, great match. We beat the crap out of each other. I think I took like
Yes.
9 chair shots in that match. Almost burned Bull's face completely off his head with a grill. Almost hit him with a car. He slammed me in a door. That was pretty awful. We fought on a crane truck out in the driveway.
Yep.
I tried to throw him in a dumpster because that's where trash goes. But sorry, did I say that? I apologize. And then he eventually put me through a table for the win. I mean, can't take away from what the guy's done in his career and in his life. It's just, we're two different kinds of people. The same guy I am in the ring is probably the same guy after a few will, take care of you out in the parking lot if you push my buttons. So I don't play tough guy.
So one of the last matches I got to witness you was against Zachariah Gibbs, and you kind of annihilated him. I think that was actually, if I remember correctly, it was during the pandemic, obviously, that dread match. So everything was closed down, and I think the Paradise Alley it was that day that they ran 3 shows in one day.
Yes.
And you kind of kicked the crap out of Gibbs, and then after that, you kind of disappeared a little bit because you suffered from an injury, correct?
Yeah. So I had a spine. I had a nagging back injury that turned out to be worse than I thought it was. I had gone out with a friend of mine. We were going to watch the AEW pay-per-view at a friend's house. He had picked me up at my house. I was living in West Haven. We had gone from West Haven to Brantford. I had gotten out of the car and I said, man, I was like, my foot feels like it's asleep. And he's like, oh, maybe it was just the way you were sitting in the car.
Right.
And then all night kept like tapping my foot on the floor, kept getting up to walk around. And it still wasn't like, excuse me, I still wasn't waking up. We, 3 hours of pay-per-view and we hung out for a little bit, get back in the car, and we start heading back home. And the feeling is now going from my foot up into my ankle. And, I'm like, wow, this is really weird. I've never had anything like this before. And then went home, went to bed, woke up the next day, and now my foot's the sleep feeling, that like static feeling, is now up to the middle of my lower leg. So now I'm like, okay, what the hell's going on? This is getting really bad. Anytime I tried to put my foot down, it was my foot I couldn't feel where my foot was touching. And it progressively got worse. And then I woke up Monday, I didn't go to the gym, I didn't work out, didn't do anything. Woke up that Monday, and now the feeling's up to the middle of my knee. My foot's now dragging behind me, like there was a real issue there. So I had actually tried to go to work because, at that point in time, I just couldn't miss, any work. And whatever was going on with my leg, I was actually up on a roof, and I had lost my footing while I was up on a roof and almost went off the side. So we got me back downstairs. I got in the truck, went back home, and I had a friend of mine drive me to the emergency room. And I found out that I had something in my foot called drop foot. They had originally started treating me for a stroke. So I was in there, and they were like touching my face. They're asking me to spell my name. They're asking me I'm like, listen, I don't know what the hell is going on here, but I'm in here because my foot and my leg are messed up. My back hurts. Like, what's going on? And once they realized that I wasn't having a stroke, they told me that there was a possible spine injury, and they needed to move me from Milford Hospital to St. Raphael's. At which point they found out that I had compressed my L5 and S1 on a cluster of nerves, which was actually shutting down the function to my right leg. Oh, so I had to have the surgery. Took about 8 hours. They went in, they removed the nerves out and fused my L5 S1, and I was out for about 6 months doing a lot of rehab and just dealing with I was on a walker. It was just a crazy surgery. I had trouble walking for the first few months. Just went through a lot of stuff life-wise, because it's one of those things where just, it started a chain reaction of things. I couldn't work my regular job. Obviously, I couldn't wrestle. I ended up losing the apartment that I was living in. But at the same time, it gave me time to, I ended up, moving in with my mom and being able to help my mom out with some stuff while I was getting healthy. And it ended up being really good for my personal mental health. Just really let me reevaluate my life as it is and sort of put some things into perspective. So in a way, it sucked that I needed the surgery, but in a way, it was great because it gave me some time to take stock of the things that I needed to take stock of.
Right.
So,
when was that surgery?
November 13th of 2020. So right in the middle of the pandemic.
November. So it's been almost 6 months now.
Seven.
Roughly 7 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a place in every town where the parks come out, where the lights go down. You know as well as I, we'll haunt these city streets until the day we fucking die. This one's for all of you, for coming out swinging and doing the things you do. So as the whiskey goes down, We'd visit Tony and Larry's, hanging out at the Empress got scary. Till Jay and Chris turned it into the heirloom. I know. Did you like the things that you might have found? I know. When you were searching for the music in this town. This is our life and we're gonna take it, gonna make it. This is our town and we're gonna make it, gonna break it. This is our hearts and you'll never take it back. Oh, never take it back. So raise your glasses up high, realize you're the reason why we're coming out swinging and doing the things we do. So this is our big thank you, saying that we appreciate you for coming out singing all the songs we do. I know. Did you like the things that you might have found? I know. When you were searching for the music in this town. This is our life and we're gonna take it, gonna make it. This is our town and we're gonna make it, gonna break it. This is our hearts and you'll never take it back. Oh, never take it back. So this is our big thank you, saying that we appreciate you for coming out and singing and doing the things you do. This is our life and we're gonna take it, gonna make it. This is our town and we're gonna make it, gonna break it. Did you like the things that you might have found? When you were searching for the music in this town. This is our life and we're gonna take it, gonna make it. This is our town and we're gonna make it, gonna break it. This is our hearts and you'll never take it back.
So you're still not back in the ring, really, but you've been focusing on music still too, or
Yeah,
starting
yeah.
to
Well,
focus
I,
on.
I made my return. I have been working out with Paradise Alley, getting myself
Okay.
ready, bumping and doing the things that I need to do for that. But also in the meantime, my band got back together through COVID. Figured, it's the time. We have plenty of time to write a good record. We have I think our last release was in like 2016. So, every once in a while, if you follow me on social media, you'll see me post one of our old videos or some live stuff. Just kind of like, hey, we're still here, we're still kicking. So we've been recording our demos over the last few months, which have been great. We're about 5 songs in on a new record as we speak. It's been coming along a lot more organically than we ever expected. And we're really excited. I'm very excited. It'll be nice to get back out and play some shows.
I can't wait to go to a show, to be honest with you. Like, the only shows that have actually been taking place in the state of Connecticut have been like wrestling shows. Like, well, I mean, music is slowly starting.
Yeah.
But it's like nothing that I want to see, really.
Yeah.
I'm really picky, There
Our
hasn't
guitar
been.
player Ricky just did did all the computer systems for the
Mhm.
Westfield Bowl.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
Right, which has been doing like a lot of jam band stuff.
Yeah,
So,
who wants that stuff? I'm too old for that stuff.
So, but we're excited. I mean, we probably won't be doing much until either the fall or winter of this year, as we're still trying to figure out what we're doing. But we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of our second album, which we're hoping at that point our third album will be ready. So, on the anniversary of the second, we're going to put out the third. So,
before we continue with that, I just want to ask you, because you just mentioned you're working out with Paradise Alley and pumping and stuff. How is that going? Like, is it taking a toll on your body still, or you're able to do that without too much craziness? Like, it affecting you too much?
As of right now, I mean, listen, the injury that I have, I've managed to come back from a lot. Tore my ACL, my meniscus, that put me out for a year, and I managed to come back. I've had this is my second surgery on my spine. The first one was my second year with NEW. I had to have a disc removed from a non-wrestling related thing, and I came back in 6 months and turned my whole career around. So I plan on doing the same again. It's just now, you got to take time and reevaluate. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. CM Punk said in one of his interviews, he's getting a little long in the tooth. Him and I are both the same age. So, and I'm obviously much bigger than he is. So, it's just now reevaluating, what you can and what you can't do. And, and how bad do I want it is really, where it's so. And you know me, man. I'm,
right.
on the damn
You gotta
turn.
get it. You're not going to stop. I know that.
Yeah.
So tell me, now that we're talking about the Two-Fisted Law is the band, by the way.
Yep.
How did you discover punk rock? Like, what was your first experience into that kind of stuff?
Oh, okay. This is also another funny story. So, I was a little bit of a nerd in my day. Much smaller guy back then. I played a lot of soccer and a lot of D&D, and it was Led Zeppelin and the Doors.
Right.
Yeah. And I was getting into like Iron Maiden and bands like that, and I love Iron Maiden to this day. But one day, my friend Matt Kubinski, we were hanging out with some friends in New Fairfield while I was at my dad's for the weekend, and he had given me, or had played me, my first Misfits 7-inch, and I can't remember what was on it at that point, but I had him tape everything from the Misfits that he had at that point.
Right.
And that's pretty much what started me down my path of discovering, different bands. Because every week I'd go, every weekend I'd be at my dad's, he'd give me something new to listen to. And then I started hanging out with people at school and in high school that were more into punk rock. So it was like, now I'm getting like, old NoFX and Bad Religion, who is still to this day one of my all-time favorite bands. The Misfits.
Yeah, Bad Religion still kick. The albums that they put out are still top quality. Like they never suck.
I agree. I don't think they put
very intelligent. They're very intelligent guys as well. Like the content in their lyrics are just it makes you think about the world and society and religion, all that stuff.
It was the first band that I ever listened to as a kid where I had to grab a dictionary and be like, what does like
wasn't that what's his name, a professor, the singer?
Yes,
Greg Gaffin
has a PhD in zoology.
Right.
So
right. So
what I mean. So but yeah, it was just like, I'm like listening to the album, I'm like, all right, what's that word? And I'm like scrolling through the dictionary and like, trying to figure out what the hell he's saying. But yeah, I mean, I was very blessed to have some good people around me as far as music goes. And I started singing in my first band when I was like 13 because I was terrible at playing instruments. So instead of being terrible at playing instruments, I was terrible at singing. But it worked because it was a punk band, so it didn't have to be great at that point.
So what's with the Misfits? That's probably one of the earliest bands I've also discovered for that genre. I just remember the very first being the Ramones. They were actually performing on public access TV. And I was just like, I was like, really like, what the hell is this?
Right.
That kind of a thing. And my mom just so happened to walk in the living room. And my mom knew who they were. She was not like a punk rock fan. She was like into Sinatra and fucking
all that
stuff like that. Yeah, like a crooner stuff. Like or like I don't know, just whatever, Beatles and stuff like that. Pop music. So she knew who they were because they were probably the most popular punk rock band, in the United States, at that time period. But
Right.
so the thing is, we go to the video store probably the following Friday, and she rents me Rock and Roll High School. And literally, that whole movie and that public access experience changed my entire life. And so like it changed the way I listened to music and the way I looked at music. Period. And it just changed. So I was like so excited. I went out and bought every Ramones record after that.
I mean, and then that's another band you could always count on them. They always stuck to the formula,
Yep.
never varied. You were going to get, 35 minutes of 1, 2, 3, 4, and just get punched in the
Right.
face. With
It's the greatest rock and roll.
whatever stuff Dee Dee Ramone was writing at that point. So,
do you realize that in that movie, it actually wasn't supposed to be the Ramones that were playing the band in the movie? It was supposed to be Cheap Trick.
really,
So that would have been a whole different movie if they were in the movie.
I agree.
I'm
Cheap Trick. I think Cheap Trick is great.
They're one of my favorite bands of all time.
Definitely not the
So,
Ramones.
it would have been a whole different movie.
I completely agree.
And then junior high, I got into things like the Misfits because of other kids. I always used to see them, because Danzig was, I think, probably in. I think Danzig was formed at that time period, so it's like he was into the metal scene at that time with that first record that he did.
Yeah, because I think when they split up in like 84, 85.
Yeah, and then he did Sam Hain for a number of years. I got to meet Jerry in the earlier 90s, and he was, this is, before they reformed the band by like 2-3 years. It was actually, at that time, he was very humble and very cool. It wasn't until they reformed. Have you ever played with them?
11 times.
11 times. Holy shit. I've always met him. I usually kind of go out of my way to make sure that I at least meet him, say hello at the shows, have him sign something. But the first few times, I thought he was really cool. I mean, he was always cool, but it just seemed like his head swelled up quite a bit after that.
Right.
So I don't know if it's just like, the popularity of the band like got to him.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not saying it bad. I mean, it just comes along with what you're doing. So
I mean, I've had the privilege of opening for 3 different incarnations of the Misfits. I opened for them when Michael was in the band.
Mm-hmm.
A guy who we all know kind of flipped off the Republican deep end, but we're not going to politicize what's going on.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah.
But still proud of all that music. We opened for the Misfits when it was Dez, Marky Ramone, and Jerry.
I've seen that lineup as well.
And then the most recent Two Fisted Law is open for the most recent, I think, 7 times.
Prior to Danzig rejoining the group.
Basically. Yeah. I mean, we were there. When they were doing the Devil's Reign album, we were on one of the shows for Devil's Reign.
So you probably, I'm assuming, because I know they were doing New Haven quite a bit. Basically, they'd always play New Haven around Halloween time.
Yeah.
And then they would. Then somehow it went from New Haven to Hartford. So did you end up in the Hartford
shows?
The Webster shows? Oh, Poughkeepsie?
The Chance. Yeah, the Chance out Poughkeepsie.
Oh, that's a place I have not heard of in years. Like, it's been a while.
They just sold, which is like somebody bought it. I don't know. Hopefully they're going to reopen it as a music venue. But last we heard, they were selling that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And it's just, I mean, as well as I do, the scene is just so much different now. All the places that we grew up going to are now closing down and becoming like, memorabilia, like these little museums.
They're memories, because it's like, I can't tell you the last time I was at Toad's place. Actually, no, that's not true. Just 3-4 years ago, I went to see the Descendants there. And prior to that, I hadn't been there since an Iggy Pop show, which was probably 15 years prior to that, because it's just like, ever since the casinos opened in Connecticut, nothing, it drew all the concerts away from New Haven and brought everything up there. So, any great band that you want to see at, like, Toad's place. It's and then when I went in there for that Descendants show, they had changed the place around so much. It was like a completely different venue inside. So it was just weird.
It's 'cause they're trying to keep up with the times. They're trying to evolve, and I get that. But at the same time, man, like, this pandemic killed a lot of great shows that were coming around. There were a lot of bands that were getting back together. I mean, you and I both share a common love for the Descendants, and seeing them put out, new music, which has been fantastic. I just heard, I think I messaged you the other day. They put out a song for their new album, like I think it's called Ninth and Walnut, and it's phenomenal.
I actually did a little research on that. Now, that's supposed to be an album that was recorded prior to Milo Goes to College.
Oh, really?
It's the original lineup. Not to mention, they're also working on newer material. There was like an EP that came out as well. So I'm just like, these guys they're taking advantage of this time and just pushing out material. And it's like they just I got the Milo EP, the Rebuke EP, so which I think is phenomenal. Awesome. Yeah, it is. It's just him and the ukulele, and then they recorded. Yeah. They also recorded those songs as well, and just so they've got that album coming out on top of the earlier album coming out. So they basically have 2 albums coming out, and I'm just like, I'm really excited because I feel like
I'm ready for it, man.
I've seen the Descendants every tour they've come to the Northeast since 1996, was it, when Everything Sucks comes out?
Yeah.
And on that tour, I saw them 5 times. Every time they hit between New York, Massachusetts, and they played one show in Connecticut. They played at the LNG, if you remember that place.
Yeah, I played there a few times.
Yeah, that place was a great venue. Apparently they were around for a lot longer than I thought of. I just never heard of any shows that happened there. I think the last show I might have gone to there was either Social Distortion or Sheer Terror. I can't remember.
Wow.
I can't remember.
Both those so phenomenal. I mean, I remember we played there for the Upstart Festival, which is run by our record label. And, that basically consisted of one major headliner and a bunch of up-and-comers on that label at that point. Mm-hmm. And I think we played there with the Coffin Cats. We played there with the Turbo ACs.
Oh, the Coffin Cats. They played Cafe 9. They played Cafe 9. They're like a psychobilly band, right?
Yep.
They played Cafe 9 like 5-6 years ago, and I went, and those guys are ripped, dude. Those guys are great.
Phenomenal. Yeah. And their singer is like this tiny little guy, but he gets up on his bass and starts doing crazy.
Yeah.
And you're just sick, like, oh man. My God, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, those guys are sick. Yeah.
But and I think the last show, even Cafe 9, I think the last show I saw there was the Queers, the Fantastic Plastics, and then my guitar player did his solo project there, and he opened, and it was phenomenal. It was a really good show. So I miss all that. I miss all those, all those shows, all those amazing, that energy,
Cafe 9 is definitely my favorite. It has become my favorite music venue. It really has in like the last, I don't know, 2 decades. Because ever since the tune-in closed, there was nothing here for a number of years. There literally was nothing. So probably a few years after that, that's when Paul and company decided to start booking shows. You'd bring in, I've seen Grant Hart there from Husker Du. I mean, I've seen the Queers there a bunch of times. CJ Ramone, Richie Ramone. I mean, I can go on and on with the list. I mean, that's such an awesome venue and great place. So I'm looking forward to that music to be back. And Agent Orange is coming up in October, so that's just
right there. I think I may join you in going to see that show.
Just one fucking thing. Got a bottle full of whiskey, a head full of sin. Gonna drink till our face cave in. This is the fun that's gonna fucking hurt. I'll race just fall. It's a downward spiral, the finish line. Get this round and the next one's mine. It's the scars and talk we love to sing. I'll race you to the bar and we'll stay all night. Gotta figure out one damn thing. How we getting home when the sun comes up? May the past drunk drive. To that old jukebox, another red of whiskey can hold the rocks. We'll get our sleep when we're good and dead. Don't cut us off till there's no more night. Stumble into that new day's light. 12 shaky steps that we know all too well. So meet us at the bar, drink with us all night. You might be the one we're looking for. Please don't take us home till the sun comes up. May the past drunk drive. May the past drunk
drive. October is going to be a crazy month because there's our drummer is getting married, and we have to go to Texas for that. So as soon as I verify the actual date and he assures us his wedding's actually going to happen, we'll make that decision.
Dude, I love venues like Cafe 9. I can't tell you, like, you know, I'm like a huge music nerd and record nerd. I've been collecting records since, like, my first obsession was, like, Elvis records I had since I was a kid. So it's like I get to see, like, so I'm like a huge rockabilly fan on top of that because of the earliest records. And it's like, I've got to see great artists like Robert Gordon at Cafe 9. And that's what's so special about Cafe 9 is that they'll bring this, like, obscure guy like Robert Gordon into town for a show, and they only fit 90 people in there, but they'll pack the place, and it'll just be like the most electric thing in that building.
The only other place I could ever compare that to is there was a place in Danbury, Connecticut, that was a special home, especially the Two-Fisted Law, called Cousin Larry's. Cousin Larry's was like the CBGBs of Danbury, and you would get some bands that, like, you know, a band I was in called River's End opened for a band called A Day to Remember on their.
I remember them. They're like a pop group, right? Or like an emo.
They're like one of those like emo punk metal kind of.
Yeah.
So they were touring for their Her Name Is Treason album. Literally 2 weeks later, they were like the biggest thing in the country, like just blowing out album after album after album. They were everywhere. And I was like, holy crap, like I opened for those guys. But I mean, just Cousin Larry's was turning out so many cool bands that were from the Danbury area, but bringing bands in from New York, and you'd get bands traveling in from Michigan and bands over from upstate New York and Maine.
Yep.
And they were bringing everybody in from everywhere. And it was great because the place was, you would never not find good music in that place at any point. We were always in there. We were always checking out what was going on. And Cafe 9 gives that same appeal where they'll bring in a bunch of different bands that you never heard of before, throw them on a bill and see what sticks. And that's great. Yeah. There needs to be more of that. There's just,
right. New Haven really died with like the death of the tune-in, and was that 2001 or maybe 2002? So. Yeah. And I remember because
I was underage, so
it was definitely in the 90s. I remember the first time I went there, I was like 16, 17 years old. I just remember ever since then, I was at every show for like the weekend. It's Friday, Saturday, Sundays when they book shows. And the Sunday shows were always matinees. So they'd start at like 2, 3 in the afternoon. And, and it just, you'd be home by like 6 or 7. So it was, it would just, there was something special about New Haven at that time period. Not to mention the Rudies, the older Rudies, not the current version. They would always have bands at night, probably Tuesday, Thursday, whatever. And that was just like, it was a phenomenal time for New Haven. And then, Yale would always have like random bands. So it was just awesome.
Well, I mean, now it's like, I think there's 3 sheets that hold shows every now
that was the old Rudies. Now, before
Rudies, that's what it was?
before they moved to Chapel Street. Yeah, that was the actual building. Now I've gone to Three Sheets a couple times. My friend Sean is in that band Murder Van. If you're familiar with
Yeah,
them,
I know that. Yep.
yeah. So I've gone down there to see him a couple times. It's just that does not have the same feel that like the old Rudy's used to have. I feel like I'm going to like TJI Fridays or something like with that place. Like so, to see a band and
Right.
this and it's just like, and if you're not like a regular and they don't know you, it's like I feel like they give the wrong vibe when you're trying to order a
You
beer or
kind of get
something.
the side eye, and you're just like,
Yeah,
"I want a
yeah,
beer so I can enjoy the band I came to see."
yeah, and they got overcharged for a PBR, $5 for a PBR. That's just crazy right there.
Want our urine in a can cheap, sir?
Yeah, just give me a. I mean, I could get a shot, a PBR and a shot for the same price at Cafe Nut.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. They do. They always had that cool drink special. It may not be the best
yeah,
shot in the world, but it'd be a shot.
hey, I'm just getting some whiskey. I don't care.
Yeah, that's you're speaking my language, bud.
There you go. Now that I got you on that subject, what's your favorite whiskey?
I'm a Jameson guy. I've always been I've been a Jameson guy. We always used to have this philosophy. We would drink the really really cheap beer, the High Life, the PBR. When we
Ain't
were
nothing
on
wrong
tour
with
down in
PBR.
Texas, Lone Star.
Yeah.
Lone Star was
Dude,
as
I love Lone Star. We used to get it up here, and we don't have it anymore. That and like Rheingold, but it was like old man beer when we were kids, but you can't find it anymore. It like disappeared.
and like remember the keg barrels? Like you get like the keg, the little
Oh, yeah.
it was like a brown bottle that looked like a keg.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Well, our theory was if you drank the cheap beer, you had space to drink the good whiskey, and that was our philosophy. But Jameson, but I'll take like the Powers. As I've gotten older now, I'm starting to get into bourbon, which is like, now I know I'm like really
It's
like
manly.
headed for the rocking chair when I'm like, I want to sniff to bourbon and to
Yeah.
sit by and watch old wrestling tapes.
That's
So-
funny. That's funny because it's like I do the same thing, especially when I'm down here recording the podcast. I always have something old in the background, something from the 70s or 80s. I'm always drinking something. And I can't touch whiskey too often anymore, but because it ends up being very dangerous if I'm recording something. But I actually had, for the first time in many years, I used to drink it all the time, but we went to a birthday party, me and my wife, and Maker's Mark. I was like, that was so strong between that, and then I upped it for the next one, was Knob Creek, if you've ever had that.
yeah.
That stuff is the
Oldies
best.
but goodies, man.
Yeah, and they kick your ass, too, on top of it.
Well, it's funny because like it doesn't take much these days because I don't I definitely don't drink the way that I used to, and so it'll be one of those things where I'll be out with friends or I'll be out with my girlfriend and
Right.
I'll 3 drinks in and she'll look at me and I'll have this goofy smile on my face. She's like, "Oh, here we go."
I definitely can't like I used to. This pandemic, though, last summer when we were locked inside,
Yeah.
literally that's all I did was beer and whiskey and doing shots of vodka, So it's like, since it got colder, the fall and winter, I was just like, I can't do it. Like I just kind of, and I'm trying to get rid of this belly here. So I've really stopped drinking beer. This is the first beer I've had in probably 2 months. So
I hear you, man. It's I again, when we were younger, the weight would come right off. Didn't matter. You just skip a meal and suddenly you lost 15 pounds.
There
Now
you go.
it's like dragging a ball and chain around. Like what just happened to me?
Oh yeah, man. In the pandemic, I gained 40 pounds from sitting at home working, which is just, it hasn't been fun. So, like, I need to gain anymore. Tell me what's in.
I went. When I went into surgery, I was 290 pounds, and I was like looking fit and trim, and I was happy. And then after surgery, I was 330 pounds, and I was like, what happened?
I'm feeling it, dude. Like, I'm there with you. Like, I get it. So I should probably force. And I got to be very thankful to Dread. Actually, he texts me probably several times a week, making sure that I'm actually keeping up with my diet. and checking in and trying stuff because it's like I asked him advice probably I don't know a couple months ago because I noticed he dropped a shit ton of weight in the last like in the last year, and
Yeah,
I
something like
saw him at a show, and basically I just asked him. I said, "Hey, what did you do?" And then he told me basically what he did. He fasted for part of the day. So if he's gonna drink, he drinks something like whiskey. Doesn't need anything fattening. And then he said, I just remember wrapping up the conversation. I'm going to be texting you just to make sure you're doing all right and make sure you're keeping up with it. And the fact is that he does. And I feel good about that because it's like I need somebody to push me to do it. If not, I'm going to be sitting here eating cupcakes and all this other shit because I'll get bored,
right.
you know? So, so tell me, you did make a comeback, right?
Yeah.
I think you joined in, well, slightly joined in, jumped in the ring to help out Lucas Chase, correct?
Yes.
Tell me how that came about. I'm kind of
Well,
interested. I think this kid's got a bright future in professional wrestling, by the way.
so
I
he
know we talked
first off, let's give him a little shout out because right now he's down at the Rhodes Academy in Austin, Texas,
amazing. That's
training
amazing to
with
hear.
Dustin Rhodes. So I took him down. We left 2 weeks ago Monday.
I
Well,
saw you
just two
posting about
weeks
it.
ago
Both
this
of you.
Monday.
Yeah.
Him and I drove down. We stopped in Norfolk, Virginia, and put up a picture of the legendary Norfolk scope, which was a big deal
Yep.
for me. Me and you, as old WCW, NWA guys, that was a huge deal. Stayed overnight there, went from Norfolk to Nashville. You saw we posted up some pictures of the Parthenon down there.
Yep.
Walked around Music City for a little bit, which was great. And then went from there to Austin. We didn't get enough time in Austin for me to get a ton of pictures. I was literally on a plane the next day, pretty much, and on our way back. Came back the following Friday, got my luggage back the following Monday.
Oh my God.
Long story, but no, it was a chance pairing. It's Lucas spent a lot of time with me when I was out with surgery. He would come by, we'd watch wrestling for a few hours, chat, he'd see how I was doing, just check if I needed anything, he'd bring me food. He was just there. And, he's been a good friend, a very good source. Not that many people know. I suffer from bipolar disorder. I've been on and off medication for a good part of my life, and he was just one of those people that was there when I was hitting low points during surgery. Not discounting my wonderful girlfriend, who is sitting next to me, and make sure I give her props or she'll stab me later.
Hello.
But no, Lucas is a good creative mind. Obviously, the owner of Blood, Sweat, and Tears. So he's got a great mind for the business. And he is a sponge for wrestling knowledge, and a great larger than life personality. He is the Ric Flair to my Arn Anderson. He's been a great friend to me. Since we've met each other, it's been go, go, go. And when they gave me the opportunity to back him up, I couldn't think of anything or any person better to back up for PAPW than him. It's just two friends that are lucky enough to be the same kind of asshole that just want to, fight and win and hunt for gold the best we can. And just like Arn, when he goes for a belt, I'll be there to back him up. And that's just how it's going to be. I've been very blessed to have him in my life.
That's amazing. Well, one thing I've noticed about him, he has a very old school persona, right from his ring jacket to the references he makes in the ring. So when he's yelling yelling at the crowd or whatever, he has a very old school persona, and he keeps kayfabe. That's the other thing. Nobody keeps kayfabe anymore, and he kept it with a guy that was getting in his face one day. Probably not the last show, the show before that, some guy was getting in his face, and I thought this was amazing that he kept it. And I even went up to him and said, "You're awesome for keeping kayfabe." Well, this fan that thought that he was going too far with his character. I don't know if he ever mentioned that or not.
Probably not. But I'm sure well, maybe he did on the ride. I think I actually remember him talking about it on the ride down.
It was hilarious. Like,
I mean, he
was
knows what to
hilarious.
do. It's the old school mentality that's lost these days, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not taken away from anybody that I've worked with. But you'll see a lot of times two guys that are feuding, and then the next thing you know, they're posting pictures at the Denny's, a few hours after the matches, which drives me utterly insane.
I agree with you. Growing up as an old school fan, I watched wrestling almost 40 years. You know what I mean?
Right.
About to turn 46 in a few months. And the fact is that people go to social media and they use their shoot name and their Twitter handle. That drives me bonkers because it's like, and then they're sitting there, like you said, taking pictures with the person that they were just in the ring with against.
Right.
So, and I just don't get that. I just don't get, like, there's no believability in the sport of professional wrestling these days.
Well, and I would be a hypocrite if I didn't tell you I didn't make the same mistake. A few years back, I had a hefty brawl with Wrecking Ball Legursky, and if you've ever watched Wrecking Ball Legursky wrestle, I will attest to you and anybody else that's worked him. It's like getting into a street fight. Like you just and I had posted some pictures because he had open hand chopped my chest like 5 or 6 times in the match to the point where I literally thought my rib cage and my spine high-fived at one point. Right. And it was he's just unbelievable. And I posted a picture and to their credibility, Roma and Mancini were like, take that down. That doesn't make any sense for you. You just got into a huge war with this guy. Why are you posting that? Right.
Those two are very old school. And Roma is very, very old school to this day. I think that he's still, if it wasn't for the modern society and professional wrestling, the society part of professional wrestling, but he would keep kayfabe 100% of the time.
At all
you know
times.
What I mean? Because, I mean, yeah.
Listen, if you come to the school, you are going to get trained old school. It's just how it works.
I believe it.
Mario Mancini will run you through drills until he's done with you, and then you move on to Paul, and Paul is no nonsense. He has a certain expectation of the people that come out of Paradise Alley, and just very privileged to come out of that system. But I mean, look at the guys he's putting out right now. You have Richard Holiday, who God bless the kid.
He's on national TV. Yeah, every week he's on national
TV. Yep. You know what I mean? And you just watch the different people, the different personalities. Yeah. It's a blessing now because you have guys that have been working for Paul for so long that have taken leadership roles like Marcel Williams, who is an unbelievable performer, but has no problem standing back and giving you advice on how to do things right. And it's incredible to see him there. You have the House of Pain, who are the most old school tag team in and out of the ring. Great workers, great personalities, and
guys.
They're doing. And another team that you've seen all over the United States just doing their thing. So big ups to those guys. And then you got the up and comers like Kylon King, who is really something great. And I believe May 29th it'll be Kylon King versus Leo Rush at XWA. Yep. Which is going to be something to behold, and it'd be a huge test for him that I know he's going to accept and go way beyond what everybody expects. You got the Haven and Flash Waller, who are up and coming and doing very well for themselves. I mean, the school is turning out some pretty amazing workers, and I'm just very, very proud to be part of that system.
I hear the train coming, it's blowing around the bend. Nights in the sunshine since I don't know when, cause I'm stuck in Folsom Prison. The time is passing on, and the train keeps on rolling down on the San Antonio. Yeah. When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy. what tortures me. Yeah. Well, if they free me from this prison, if that railroad train were mine, I'd probably move it over just farther down the line. Far from Folsom Prison, that's where I want to stay. When I let that lonesome whistle blow my blues away. When I let that lonesome whistle blow my blues away. Yeah.
So, and again, for them to, I've definitely put that school through some ups and downs, and they've stuck by me. So I'm very privileged.
That's amazing. All those guys you mentioned all have really bright futures. Kylon King, Flash Waller, those guys are gonna go far in the business. I feel, you know what I mean. I just feel like that Leo Rush match right there just kind of speaks for it. You know what I mean? In the XWA, I think it's going to be a good match. I wish I could attend that. I'd look forward. I want to see
You'd
that.
be on Fight TV.
Yeah. If I can't attend it, I think it's only like an hour away from me. That right? How is that about right?
XWA, the building, I think is about it's like 90 minutes, I think, from the school.
Oh, okay, that's nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
but I know for a fact it'll be on Fight TV, so I'm looking forward to watching that. So it's just again, these kids are living, breathing, and eating wrestling now, and it's
Right.
It's just nice to see like them embrace the knowledge that's being pushed on them, and then learning and feeding off every little bit that they can get from anybody else. So you're going to see some good things from those young kids, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens to them in the future.
So why don't you tell me what's in store for Big Jym?
Well, there's some things on the horizon. Definitely some things I can hint at. This upcoming weekend, but I'll leave you to speculate about what's going on this upcoming weekend. But you will see something brand new and very big, and I'm not just talking about myself. So Rhode Island better take notice. As far as anything goes, we're going to see how the body holds up. My heart is willing. My heart and my brain are willing. It's just making sure that the body's on board. So, and you've heard it a million times from every retirement speech ever. If I can't be 100%, if I can't be Big Jym Anderson, if I can't be that guy, I don't want to do it. So I'm hoping that this event upcoming will, prove that I can still go and really push forward the fact that, I'm going to make this year as phenomenal as it can be. And we'll see where it takes me after that.
What about the music career on top of the wrestling?
We were basically full-time doing shows when I first broke into wrestling. Obviously, now we've gone from discussing, man, I can't wait to see what bar we're going to drink at tonight, to, hey, man, I just refied my house. And I'm just like, you just kind of look, what did you just say to me? No, obviously, you get older and things are going to be different. We're gonna see where the album takes us. I would hopefully like to make sure that we get out and play some shows as soon as possible, as long as we're ready to go. And we're very lucky. I think our record label is still willing to deal with us, and we'll put out so Altercation Records will be helping us out as far as I know. And right now, if I do say myself, it's some of the best stuff we've written in a very long time since our second record, second and third record, and we're really coming along, and it's phenomenal, man. And these are Dave, Kyle, and Ricky. When you're in a band with, I've been in a band with them now. This will be 13 years, almost 14 years. That's a marriage. And I've been in a been in a relationship with 4 men longer than any woman in my life. Sounds really awkward, but it's true. But yeah, I mean, I've been very lucky to have them still tolerate me after all this time, because I've definitely been a fucker over the years and put people through a lot of stuff. So it goes to the heart and credit to those gentlemen who still want to be like, hey, Jim, like, we need your voice on this or it's not going to be right. And just like I can't imagine playing with any other band right now. It's the best group of guys I've ever worked with, and I don't ever want that to change.
What about, is there anything that you want to plug social media wise?
I mean, you can find me on Instagram at, I hate to say it, I don't have a wrestler page yet. At am I Jym_Perella?
It's Big Jym Anderson.
Oh, Jym Perella, JYM, all lowercase, Jym Perella. One sentence. I have a movie on Amazon Prime right now called Completely Normal. You can get it for $1.99. Check it out. I have a speaking role in it. I'm going to be in a new movie that I actually will be filming parts for on the 23rd as the bartender. So that should be cool. Yeah. So that should be pretty cool. Like I said, the band's working on new stuff. We will be doing some acoustic sets soon. I'm not sure when that will start. I have to talk to the guys and see how we're going to work that out until we can get full band practice, because we're recording in a very odd way right now. So
gotcha.
So I'll give you more information of that, kayfabe on that. But and other than that, just keep your eyes open. I will be wrestling for more companies this year. I'm going to put the best foot forward that I can. And, this is going to be a good year. You know what I mean? I have Pro Wrestling Tees / Jym Anderson. I have a bunch of new shirts out, all designed by Dave Cole, who is an amazing wrestler and artist.
The wrestler? Okay.
The wrestler, Dave Cole.
Does he still wrestle?
He just came back 2 weeks ago.
Okay. I remember him
2 or 3 weeks ago.
Years ago. I remember him.
And he's still amazing.
He came out of the NAWA school. Is this correct? The New Alliance. Oh, crap. I'm trying to remember the name of the school. It was an older gentleman named Fred, I think, that ran the school, if I remember correctly.
I'd have to talk to him and find out, but
I'm going back years, so my memory might not be all that.
Well, I remember I had met him through Jay Busta, and
yes, and who came from the same school that I'm thinking of. I just can't remember the name of it.
Quite possibly. Yeah. I mean, the band, we another plug for another wrestling company, Interspecies Wrestling, ISW. We were their house band for a few years. So that's how I got my first little foray into wrestling, was because I chokeslammed Dan Barry during one of his matches.
I got some of their Blu-rays. I'm gonna have to see if you're on
any of the ones that were at Danbury at the Empress Ballroom, we were the band on stage.
I'm gonna look now.
And so that would be us. That's how I got my first foray. That's how I met Eddie Kingston, the amazing Chris Dickinson, Dave Cole, Frankie Arion, Pinky Sanchez, like all those great wrestlers. Jaka, all of Team Pazuzu. Santana and Ortiz, both of those guys I met before they went to AEW. Just an amazing company. So check them out, dude. Like, such good stuff. You said you already have some of their stuff.
I have like 3 Blu-rays, I think, 3 or 4 of their Blu-rays. Yeah.
Yeah. If it's any of the ones from the Empress Ballroom in Danbury, we played the intermissions for all those shows.
I'm definitely gonna look now because I don't even remember, to be honest. It's been a while. So, all right, Jim. I really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Hey, man, it's great. I'm really glad you had me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
No problem, brother.